Hello and welcome to a new video in the Excel function series. Today I want to talk about the let function. The let function is a function that basically allows you to assign names to calculation steps. And the advantage is you can simplify your formulas because you have names inside the formulas for several calculation steps. And also you have a performance improvement because some calculations then only needs to be done once and not twice or even more times. And the syntax of the let function is that you basically have a name, a value for this name, and then either a calculation um, or the name as an output or another name and so on and so on. So yeah, the let function therefore always needs 3 plus n times 2 elements. So either 3 elements, 5 elements, 7 elements, and so forth. And for variable naming, the variable name must start with a letter. Something that sounds or is like a cell reference is not possible, but you can name functions, you can name names similar to function names. So let's write something let. So my name is A. Then the name I want to have 1, 2, 3 is in this case a number. And now if I then output A, my output is the value I gave this name. So we can also use here B. B could be 2. And now we can calculate something like A times B. And now we basically multiply the value for A with the value for B. So it's basically like having variable names in programming that you use inside a function. And yeah, you can also output here only B. So it's either a name that you have as an output at the end or a calculation. And one simple step where you could use a let function is, for example, this here. I have here multiple letters with a few gaps in between. And I now want only to have the unique letters. So I type in unique. I reference all the letters. But now I have a problem. Always these gaps are interpreted as no value. But I don't want to have this value. And what I now would need to do without let is writing filter. I want to filter this if this is not nothing. And now I don't have any gaps in there. But now we have a problem. This here, this unique function over this whole range, is calculated twice because it's calculated once here and calculated once here, which is inefficient, especially if you use large calculations or heavy calculations. So, and therefore, I use a let function. I name this u, and I calculate the unique values of this range once. Here we go. And now I use filter. I want to filter u, so my named calculation, if u is unequal to nothing. And I get the same result. And now it's kind of faster. It's not measurable with this small of a calculation, but with other larger calculations, I get here this result faster. So there are a few best practices I want to give you on hand when writing a let function. All inputs, so all like constants you want to give and all external references should be at the beginning of the let formula. And you should pass inputs unprocessed, so kind of naked. So you should not do, okay, here's my first input. I want to have it as a single column, then I write 2 and the reference. You could do that, but it's not proper style. But I have to say I not always use the proper style. So also lambdas within let, this is the next short chapter, but should also be at the beginning of the let statement. You should use useful, meaningful, suitable names, but what is useful to you might not be useful to other ones. So I, for example, always use single character stuff when useful. I always name sometimes, what you should never do, names like formula names. So yeah, but you could use this also to make your formula more auditable if others see them. So you should also keep that in mind. And the last output of this calculation should be the name and not the calculation. So I do something, okay, I want to have the output name or result. Then I want to calculate this result or output, and then I give it out because it's faster in audit. When you want to put in intermediate step, then you only need to switch out the last argument. Therefore, this is like a short tip. And then the example structure is, okay, you have here, for example, two inputs, naked. Then you do some intermediate steps where you have your calculation. Then your result or output name. Then the calculation for this name. And then you output this result then. Yeah, this is an exemplary structure. Yeah, also this intermediate step. So this here could be way more than only one or two steps. So let's talk about a pro tip. You can call up lambdas within the let function and use it several times. And I'm not talking about the lambdas you store in the name manager. No, I talk about other lambdas. So how does it work? You write a let statement and you determine a name for this lambda. For in this case, I want to square something and I write SQ. This is then the name from a lambda. Then I write my lambda normally, so lambda A. And now I want to square A. So A squared. I close my bracket and I have written my lambda. And if I now want to call my lambda, I simply need to type in square and give it a result or a value. And now here in this lambda function, the 2 will be put in. And then we have, okay, A is now 2. 2 plus 2 gives 4. And therefore, this function will hand out 4. This might be useful when you have something that you do multiple times. For example, here I do this for a tic-tac-toe game, and I check this for all rows and for all columns. I check, okay, are there 3 identical values? And then I write a lambda, okay, check for this array A if there are 3 identical values, or unique should be only 1. So yeah, this can be useful. And yeah, this does also mean that you could use other lambdas you have stored in your name manager as well. But this is an internal lambda that you can only use inside your let function. So with that, I'm finished with my short explanation about the let function. It's a super useful function. I highly recommend it to use it and learn it. It's quite simple if you think about it, and it's also better for auditability, simplification, performance improvement. So there's basically no downside in using a let function when you have complicated formulas. Although I have to say, sometimes people want to have more like intermediate steps that they can see. So first this calculation, then this calculation based on this range, and also with like dynamic arrays and all this stuff, it's also possible there. But if you want to do single cell formulas that are readable, use let. Thank you for your attention. I see you next time. Bye.